I think 0 of our students currently work in the exact tech stack that we train on in bootcamp. But what they learn is they learn how to learn programming.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Awesome Inc.'s podcast, where we highlight people pursuing their definition of, you guessed it, awesome. So buckle up and get ready for some more success story adventures and failures from Kentucky's tech and entrepreneur community. Nick, there was a lot to digest from everything we just talked about, and appreciate hearing the backstory. It's funny when you hear the same story, but from someone else's perspective. I feel like there was so much I either relearned or, it was a nice surprise to hear. So again, keeping on the topic of bootcamp, I know we talked a lot about the backstory, the why of what we do. So let's talk about some of the hows, some of the applications. What is it that we actually do with people that come through the doors of Awesome Inc? Obviously, we know programming or teaching, but what does that look like?
So with our bootcamp program, it starts with the application process, and I think that's a really important piece for this. We're looking for people for whom this program is the right fit, and it's not the right fit for everyone. And
is that okay?
That's very much okay. There are lots of different ways that you could learn to become a software developer. Plenty of folks are self-taught, and that's part of what makes what we do possible. Is that this is not a heavily regulated career path. It's not the kind of thing where you need a certification to get into it. I've talked with co-founder Luke Murray about this, and his dream is always to do a boot camp for doctors. And I think there are lots of opportunities to transform medical education, but I don't think the same exact format would quite work for physicians. So what we do is it starts with our application process. We typically have for a class of 10 to 15 students, somewhere between 70 and 100 applicants for that program.
Wait, one more time. A class of 10 to 15 and an applicant pool of 70 to 100?
That's right.
Wow.
So we're pretty selective, and that's something that's really important to us, is that someone coming into the program has a really good shot at landing a job in a short amount of time coming out of the program. And that's something we keep a close eye on, employment opportunities. We work with employers in Central Kentucky, and now a few remote employers that we have connections with as well. But we really want to make sure that people have a spot to land, because that's what we do. You could look at this in the grand scope of education, and some of education, if you start to look in early childhood or K-12 education, a lot of that's learning how to think, learning how to become the best version of yourself. And when we're looking at someone coming into boot camp, we kind of make the assumption they're a little bit past that. What they're really looking for is this career-focused training. And so as we go through the application process, we've got a 4-step application process. There's an online application. We do a few logical and programming technical challenges. And then we've got an interview where our students meet with Stephen Rue from our team and myself, and we grill them. No, we ask them all these hard questions. No, it actually is very conversational. Again, we're not here to try and put people in a corner and to intimidate them, but we really want to see why do you want to do this? It's a really hard thing to do. A lot of our students tell us, that name bootcamp, like that's accurate.
Yeah, it lives up to the meaning.
Which means someone getting into the program, we want them to know, we're not going to wave a magic wand and suddenly you're a developer. We are here, and our lead instructor Justin Hall talks about this a lot as a guide. He kind of takes the position of a Master Yoda, of a Gandalf, as someone to guide you along the path, but you have to walk that path on your own. So that's what we look for in the application process, is really people who are ready to take that leap and go all in. When they get into the program, what it actually looks like, our first 4 weeks, we've always done remote. So pre-COVID, that was our model. And what that does is it gives people a little chance to start to ease their way in. If we started 40-hour weeks right from day one, I think that would be kind of hard. So we start with this onboarding phase for the first 4 weeks. Students work through some of the video and text-based curriculum that we have, and they do that on their own time, mostly nights and weekends. But then we meet up every day, and we have what's called a stand-up meeting. And again, this is a common piece of the real work life of a software engineer. So these meetings last about 30 minutes, and we ask everyone 3 questions. What did you do yesterday? What do you plan to do today? And what blockers do you have? What's stopping you from accomplishing your goal? So that's what the first 4 weeks look like, and we get up to speed on some of the basics in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, using Git and GitHub for source control. And after those first 4 remote weeks, then we really turn up the heat. So we start our 12 weeks of in-person courses. And I think one of the things that makes this program so successful, again, is the way it really feels like a work environment. So it's not like going to college and you're in class a few hours and then you're home doing homework. Our students are with us 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday for those 12 weeks. And for most of them, they don't just close their laptop when they go home. They're doing more work in the evenings. They're doing work on the weekends, and they really people get out of it what they put into it. And the way we're able to condense all this into such a short period of time is people really do spend a lot of time. This is their one thing, for those 16 weeks in the program.
So how'd you guys come up with the breakdown of the boot camp? Because again, I know we talked about MobileX. Hey, the one day workshop wasn't the best revenue stream. Mm-hmm. A lot of prep, not much to follow up with. So again, you mentioned 4 weeks being remote, 12 weeks in person. How'd that breakdown come about?
Yeah, so when we first started the program, we didn't do the first 4 weeks remote. We didn't really have interaction.
Gotcha.
We sent out what we call pre-work, and so it was kind of a summer reading assignment, and we asked our students to do that entirely on their own. We now do still have some pre-work. It's much more basic, and students can start on that once they're accepted. But we realized the accountability is one of the biggest things that we provide. And so that's when we took what was really just a 12-week program and added those 4 weeks at the beginning to make it really a full 16 weeks. So a lot of it has been things that we've learned along the way. For the initial structure, we looked at a lot of other programs out there. So some of the programs were shorter, closer to 8 weeks. We looked at programs that had 12-week models, and we liked that quite a bit. When it comes to tech stack, one of our sister company, Apex Software, got to dictate the first tech stack a little bit. Our first lead instructor was Matt Smith from Apex Software, and essentially we worked in the technologies that were his bread and butter. So in our first program, we worked in Python and Django. Our JavaScript framework was Angular, and so we really got to build the program, first around that first lead instructor, around Matt. And the thing is, it worked. We got to put, Matt knew on the far end the skills that someone would need to get started as a junior developer. And so that really, that really worked out. It set a great foundation. We had our second lead instructor that we hired after Matt was Janine Hempy, and Janine had a lot of experience in PHP and Laravel, so we made a switch in our technology stack there, and that seemed to match pretty well. PHP is pretty heavily used in this region, and sometimes it gets a kind of a bad name. A lot of folks, their first scripting language was PHP, and they look at it kind of as a primitive tool. I think Laravel, though, kind of makes a good case for that. It's really based on the same architecture as Rails, and a lot of the most popular sites that you've used on the web. WordPress built with PHP, Wikipedia built with PHP, Facebook at some point, and maybe still in some ways, built on a PHP foundation. So sometimes we get that question, and but it's really been a good thing for our students. And really what matters is not the specific languages that we're learning. We tell our students that, I think 0 of our students currently work in the exact tech stack that we train on in bootcamp. But what they learn is they learn how to learn programming.
Speaking to that, I know we talked about creating value with our accountability, teaching students really to be part of a team from the get-go. So last thing before we wrap up, how would you say you go about currently finding new ways to stay relevant? So you talked about with Matt Smith as the first instructor, hey, Python, that was heavily used.
Mm-hmm.
Then Janine, PHP, Laravel. So now Justin Hall, spoiler, he is our lead instructor. How do you guys go about changing technology frameworks, tech stacks, all the stuff that most people listening are probably like, what does that word mean?
Yeah. Justin Hall's our lead instructor. Ian Rios is our other instructor, and they really make a great pair. Justin comes with 20 plus years of programming experience. But before he got into programming, he had an art degree, and so he kind of comes, like many of our students, from what we consider a non-traditional background. And I'll let Justin share his story on how he got into this. Ian comes from that traditional background. Ian has a CS degree from RPI, and so comes from kind of this traditional tech background. And in our off season, so in between, when we don't have a course running, Justin and Ian spend a lot of time, updating our curriculum, researching some of the latest trends and technologies out there, talking with our alumni to find out what people are using on the job. So we are constantly updating our tech stack. We use React now, and that's been a really key piece for a lot of our students, as it ends up being a lot of what they spend their time working in. But I think that's been a really big piece. Our instructors are great at picking up new things and putting it together and figuring out how to teach that to our students. But our alumni and the employers we work with continue to be a really important piece of that feedback loop.
Nick, thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. So let's say someone listening to this now gets the urge to want to apply to the bootcamp. How do they do that?
Yeah, so if you go to our website, awesomeinc.org/bootcamp, you can find more information on the bootcamp program, and there's a link there to apply. So that's the best way to get started. And really, it starts with a conversation. So even if you're not sure if this path is right for you, we always encourage people to apply, to go through the process. And we hope even if someone decides not to go to bootcamp or chooses a different program, that application process is a helpful part of informing them and making their decision.
Well, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Awesome Inc.'s podcast. And another quick thank you to Lee Rosevere and a few members from our community who provide the music that you hear in this show. Lastly, give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, all that jazz. Or even better, come on down to our space. Come be a part of our community and get plugged in, and let's start something awesome together. You guys rock. We'll see you next time.